Hi, my name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're the hosts of The Pint,
a pop culture podcast.
Lloyd, if you had to tell any of the people out there that might be listening to The Pint for the first time about anything unsavory or disconcerting we might do on the show, what would you warn them about?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers, and sometimes we swear like motherfucking sailors.
Fuck yeah, we do. You heard it from him. You've been warned.
Listen in.
Pull the string! Pull the string!
Cut.
Perfect.
Well, all good things must come to an end here on The Pint, or even all, middling. How did you feel about it? I don't know. Depptember's over. We're officially in week 4, the last film. My name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And I am all's well that Criswell's.
That's our buddy Keith from Geek Time. Is it TV, network? What are you going with now?
It's just TV because the network decided all this extra work, like even a little bit of work on the side, forget it, I'm out.
Yeah.
So the network went away real fast.
Yeah,
It's hard.
but Geek Time TV is doing very well.
Yeah, it actually is. Yeah.
I see your videos. I subscribe myself. We'll get into all that good stuff. But we got to get right to Johnny Depp, Keith. I'm sorry. This isn't Keith Tember. This is Depptember. All right. So let's be fair to the man of the hour. Manster, we're talking Ed Wood tonight. Had you ever seen the film before?
Oh, it's funny you should ask. So when this came up in the list that you sent me, said these are the ones that were chosen, I was happy because it finally gave me a reason to watch Ed Wood. I had never seen it before.
Wow.
And I always wanted to, but this gave me the reason.
The Pint gave you the impetus. The Pint Insiders who got to vote for the Depptember films. You just got to go to Patreon/The Pint Insider. Or I'm sorry, actually Patreon/The Pint. Become an insider and you could shape the show, essentially.
Yeah.
So, and we love that. We love doing what our insiders want us to do. I saw this movie in the theaters many, many, many moons ago. Now, Keith, who is a Pint Insider and who did vote, messaged me after the vote and said, I just want to be on the Ed Wood episode. Keith, why?
I love this film. I saw it in the theater too. I saw it up at Trinity College in their Cine Studio.
Okay.
And it was funny how it worked because all the people I was just in my last year of college at the time, and everybody told me it was boring, but I wanted to see it anyway. And I was supposed to go with my girlfriend, but she copped out at the last minute, and a bunch of my friends were already going. When I got up there, they were already seated. The lights were out. Trailers were going. So I just sat anywhere by myself, and I was captivated. I got sucked right into this thing, and I loved the tenaciousness of his story.
Yeah.
It was so inspiring. I love the film. I think it's Tim Burton's best.
I will tell you whether I agree with you or not at the end.
Yeah, I'll tell you at the end.
I might agree with you. All right, let's get into it, Ed Wood.
Lock and load!
Fire.
So Ed Wood was released on October 7th of 1994, directed by Tim Burton, as we said. You might know Tim Burton from other films with Johnny Depp, Sleepy Hollow, Edward Scissorhands, but it was not supposed to be a Tim Burton directed film. Tim Burton was going to produce this movie. Tim Burton was supposed to direct a film that came out about 2 years after this as his next film called Mary Riley. That was a Julia Roberts film about Jekyll and Hyde. It was a failure. Initially, it was supposed to star Winona Ryder. So he was concentrating on that. He was going to produce this. Michael Lehman, who directed Heathers, who directed Hudson Hawk, was supposed to direct this film for Tim Burton and Denise Denovi, his producing partner. But he got wrapped up in the pre-production of a film he was making called Airheads, if you remember that, with the Lone Rangers. Brendan Fraser, Steve Buscemi, and of course Adam Sandler. So he couldn't do it. And Tim Burton at this point had taken a liking to the script, and he kind of felt like the relationship between Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi mirrored his relationship that he had with Vincent Price at the end of Vincent Price's life and career, because they collaborated a little bit too. So he felt like this kind of kinship with it. Now, he wanted to make this movie in black and white, and Columbia Pictures, who initially held on to it, did not want to do that. Black and white doesn't make money. It's art housey, all that shit. They put it into turnaround. Tim Burton got pissed off. He quit Mary Riley, made this his next movie, and brought it to Disney, who put it through as Touchstone Pictures, that arm of Disney. So this thing kind of moved around a little bit like that. The writers on this were two guys named Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski. Super Polish last name. The People versus Larry Flint, Man on the Moon, the movie about, help me out here. Jesus.
From Taxi. Lock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman. Yeah, I was thinking Lockett too. They also, so you think, oh, they've got these kind of like these heavy biopics under their belt. Ed Wood as well. Those guys also wrote Problem Child 1 and 2. So you can't win them all. They had written this script together in their film school days because they had an obsession with a book called Nightmares of Ecstasy, The Life and Art of Edward D. Wood Jr. So Edward D. Wood Jr., who is this guy? Who's Ed Wood? A movie producer, director, writer from essentially the 50s through the late 70s when he died. He died in 1978 and I think 54 years old. But Keith, what's Ed Wood's like kind of place in Hollywood? How do people look at him? What is the whole thing with him?
Well, as famously stated, there were only two people in Hollywood who did all those things. Orson Welles and Ed Wood.
Yeah. Yeah.
He aspired to be this, he wanted to be a pulp storyteller, I mean, he had his imagination, and he grew up reading pulp magazines and comic books and all this kind of stuff. And I clearly loved the Universal Monsters movies. And he kind of wanted to, be the next great horror / sci-fi director. But his talent didn't match his ambition or his imagination.
There you go. Perfectly stated.
That is perfectly stated. Manster, Tim Burton said that when he made this movie, he made it with such an optimistic tinge because he didn't think that there was any point in making a movie where Ed Wood is the joke.
Right. Do
you like that? Because I love that part of it.
I totally like that, and that actually makes it into my rating, a little statement I have in there. But yeah, he does make the film through Ed Wood's eyes, and so it has this, overtly optimistic quality, and it totally works because of who he is and the fact that he really didn't have the talent that he needed. He didn't focus on, honing that talent. He just did what he did. And it totally comes across, even as far as his little open mouth smirk that he has. Every little bit about it, it's great. And it totally works for the movie. It couldn't have been done any other way.
Yeah, I agree. I like the fact that this isn't a mean movie. This is a movie about someone with a dream. And I also like the fact that this isn't, and Tim Burton kind of said this as well in the same interview I read, this isn't a stodgy biopic. There were things they left out. He was an alcoholic. They mention it at the end of the movie, but he was an alcoholic the whole time, apparently. He lied a little bit about some of his military service. He did serve in the military, but he claims that he got injured in battle, and it seems like they figured out that he was more of like a file clerk. He did say that he lived in fear. He mentions it in the movie of being caught like wounded by a combat medic because he was wearing. Oh, by the way, he's a crossdresser too. He, if you didn't know, he was wearing a pink brassiere and panties underneath his GIs. So they didn't focus on that. But I think what that does is it makes it kind of a Tim Burton movie. A Tim Burton movie to me, like Pee-wee's Big Adventure or Batman, is kind of like almost in our world, but like a level up a little bit, like the plane is just slightly different. And even though this is set in Los Angeles and this is set in the 1950s, it just feels like maybe it's not our real world. And I'm fine with that. I like the fact that they did that, because it just feels a little bit more surreal. It gives it a little bit of a different feel than what
it's totally otherworldly for sure.
Right. They could have made a regular scripted biopic where he's an alcoholic and his cross-dressing is even, obviously there are, in 1952, there are people in this movie that look at it as strange, but they could have made it where he's being abused through the whole thing, or maybe that's something he experienced in real life, but they didn't choose to do that. They kind of just tried to make it a little bit more, I guess, not ungrounded.
Question for you. The term that you use, cross-dresser.
Yeah.
In the movie, they use the word transvestite.
Yeah, well, that's what a transvestite is.
Right. That's still a word, that's accepted. I'm just wondering because I didn't actually look that up.
Yeah, in 1994 it was. In 1952, it was probably the only word they used for it.
Right.
Think about, I'm not a fan of the movie, but think about Rocky Horror. He calls himself a sweet transvestite.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what a transvestite is someone that wears, the opposite's clothes. But as he makes clear multiple times in the movie, he's not gay.
Totally hetero.
Yeah. I love sex with women.
I love pussy.
This was filmed between August and November of 1993, essentially 30 years ago from right now.
Yeah.
And it was filmed all over LA, Gardena, Long Beach, Norwalk. Now here's something. We know that he wrote and directed a bunch of different movies. The film kind of goes between Glenn and Glenda, Bride of the Atom / Bride of the Monster, and the famous, infamous Plan 9 from Outer Space. But from like 1963 until his death, he also wrote a bunch of like kind of crime sex novels. And some of them have great titles. I'm going to read some of them off for you right now. Here are some of the books he wrote up until his death in 78. Black Lace Drag, Devil Girls, Nighttime Les. This is my favorite. Purple Thighs.
Oh.
And then just the most right to the point title, The Gay Underworld.
Prince want to adapt Purple Thighs at any point?
I almost wonder if he tried to buy the rights. Purple Thighs. That just gives me so many visuals. All right, Manster, let's talk about the cast.
Assemble your crew.
Well, of course, we have Johnny Depp as Ed Wood. At the time, he was apparently depressed about filmmaking and the films he was doing. And I don't know, I guess this one gave him a chance to stretch out and have some fun. And he loved working with Martin Landau. I guess, according to him, that rejuvenated his love for acting. But I don't know what he was so depressed about before this for. Anyway, but it was funny. I was reading, he studied the performance of Jack Haley, who played the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, okay.
And a couple others, Ronald Reagan, because he had a sort of blind optimism, and Casey Kasem for like the cadence of his speaking.
This, look, we'll talk about the movie, but in my opinion, and I haven't seen everything, this is Johnny Depp's best performance. We've talked 4 Depp movies at this point, and the Gilbert Grape and Nick of Time kind of understated. Captain Jack Sparrow obviously is a great performance, but it's, it kind of in the end is like a one-trick pony over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a one-trick pony. But this is just his optimism, everything, his physicality, his hair, every little thing he does in this movie, he acts with his eyes. Bella, he has this, I don't know.
Youthful exuberance, I would say.
Yeah.
And a naivete to him. Everything is like, wow. Like he's just so gullible. And like when he meets Criswell and he thinks that Criswell can actually predict these things. And Criswell tells him, nah, it's all bullshit.
It's bullshit.
And he's devastated. You see the look on his face. He's, it's fake. He wants to believe.
There's only one scene in the movie where he really, after multiple, issues with getting his films made and different things, It's not until the end with the Baptist where he finally just says, "That's it." He freaks out and goes to the bar.
Right.
And this is a guy that, like, you know, at least in the world of the movie, I'm sure he suffered more in real life, but in the world of the movie, nothing gets him down.
Nothing
except for these fucking Baptists.
That's right. Oh, then we have Martin Landau as Bela Lugosi. So Martin Landau, fantastic in this. He basically, you know, plays Bela, a washed up actor who, you know, is feeling like useless. Like there's no reason for him to be around anymore. So Rick Baker did the prosthetics for this. So he did a set of ears, nose, chin, and something that covered his lip. Just enough so that Martin Landau could actually use his face to act, which he does so amazingly well in this.
He won the Academy Award for supporting actor.
Yeah,
he won. I thought
it's
I wrote
a transformational performance from him and Johnny Depp.
Yeah. He won, I believe, 18. No, the movie won 18 awards, as far as not Academy Awards, but just all the different film critic awards. And out of those 18, 9 of them were for Martin Landau.
He's the first actor to ever win an Academy Award for playing an actor, a real actor.
Oh, cool.
I think Cate Blanchett did it years later for The Aviator. I think she played Katharine Hepburn. I'm not 100% sure. But what I didn't know, having seen this movie several times through the course of the years, I didn't know Rick Baker did the makeup for this and also won an Academy Award as well.
That's right.
And you think of Rick Baker, you think of an American Werewolf in London. You think of the stuff that, you know, monster stuff. But here he is transforming a dude into another dude. And another thing I never really thought about much until this viewing is how Martin Landau disappears into that makeup. It doesn't look like him.
It doesn't look like him. And I was just going to say too, his theatricality is not, it's not like he's there to shine as an actor. He's fucking making Bela Lugosi shine here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watch him and I think I'm watching Bela Lugosi.
Yeah. I love the scene where they're sitting on the couch watching Vampira, and Bella's obviously still a horny old man. He's just, Vampira.
She's a honey.
Come to me. And he's just doing it. And of course,
Bella, how do you do that?
He's trying it as well, Ed Wood. Oh, yeah.
You must be double jointed and Hungarian.
Awesome.
Yeah. So then after Bella, we have Sarah Jessica Parker as Dolores Fuller, Ed's girlfriend in the beginning of the movie. Until he meets someone else, and she totally, man, oh man, what did you think of her?
She's a shrew.
Yeah, she did a great job though. I thought she was fantastic in the movie. Obviously, you know, she's a 6-time Golden Globe and Emmy winner for Sex in the City, and what was that other big one she did?
Well, I mean, she's married to Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, she's married to him.
Yeah.
She did Square Pegs.
Yeah.
An old favorite of mine.
Hocus Pocus. I've never seen it, but that's huge.
State in Maine by David Mamet. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, she's great in that. You'll have to check that one out.
She's really good in this. She's really
so
good.
Yeah, and her character, it's pretty sad at the end when she leaves, but expected. That's the way it's going. Then we have Patricia Arquette as Kathy O'Hara, Ed's girlfriend after Dolores. And she does not have a problem with Ed's secret. Whereas Dolores did, she does not. She was in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, which we covered, right? Dream Warriors. True Romance, which is another favorite of mine.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, had a sibling in a similar situation.
Yeah, Alexis Arquette. Yeah.
Alexis. Alex, and then Alexis later.
And real quick, Johnny Depp and Patricia Arquette both made their big screen debuts in Nightmare on Elm Street films. He was in 1 and she was in 3. That was their first film role. Yep.
Wow. Amazing. Then we have Jeffrey Jones as the amazing Criswell, a local TV psychic who you talked about earlier. He helps Ed with his production duties and finding investors, stuff like that. Obviously, he was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off as well. Beetlejuice, Howard the Duck, Ravenous.
Yes, favorite of mine. The less said about Jeffrey Jones, legally the better.
we'll move on.
Yeah.
Then we have G.D. Spradlin as Reverend Lemon, the Baptist minister who funds Plan 9, actually, which was originally Grave Robbers from Outer Space.
Yeah.
And you will remember him as the old man, the old mystery man in Nick of Time.
Yep. Yeah, as soon as I saw him,
very
that's
first
where I know
episode.
this guy from. Yeah.
Yep. Then we have, in a cameo appearance, who you don't actually hear speak because they dub his voice, is Vincent D'Onofrio as Orson Welles.
That dub job, man. I don't remember ever. I know that I've read that it was dubbed by
Pinky and the Brain
Maurice LaMarche.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who does, he's Pinky or the Brain, right?
Brain. Yeah.
Brain.
Yeah.
But it's so obvious in this movie. And I have no problem with it because I don't want to shit on this movie at all. But when he's talking, I feel like I'm only paying attention to the fact that that's not Vincent D'Onofrio's voice.
Right.
He does look like Orson.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And he's wearing a tux in a bar. I like that.
Yeah.
In the middle of the afternoon.
I didn't do any research, but do either of you know if that was a real scene or is that just movies?
It's fake. They made that up actually because Ed Wood fancied himself a successor to Orson Welles.
Yeah, of course.
That was his benchmark. He wanted to be the next Orson Welles.
Benchmark. He made Citizen Kane when he was 26.
I'm already 32.
Yeah. Then we have Lisa Marie as Mila Nurmi / Vampira. Not Lisa Marie Presley. That's not the same person. She was basically a hostess of the local vampire show who tried to sue Elvira when Elvira was coming out unsuccessfully.
Well, I mean, look, it's a shtick, but
yeah,
people knew Vampira back in the 50s, but unfortunately, even if Elvira kind of took it, she ran with it and made it like hers.
Yeah,
for the last 50 years.
She sure did. And she was just at the Connecticut Horror Fest that we went to recently. Did not get in her line, even though I brought some Elvira stuff. It was way too long for me.
I did not see her at all because the line was too long, but I saw pictures of her, and she's 76 and still looking good. So
she looks great for 46.
Yeah.
So Lisa Marie, she was a model for Calvin Klein, studied ballet and classical piano. She's in Mars Attacks and Sleepy Hollow. Funny fact is she met Tim Burton in a coffee bar on New Year's Eve, 1992, and they were engaged from 93 until 2001.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a long engagement.
He left her for Helena Bonham Carter.
That's correct.
And then Lisa Marie, she auctioned off a bunch of the stuff that he had left at her place. Like, I was reading about this, and he was pissed because, Tim Burton, obviously, he's probably like some kind of weird collector. She probably sold some, I don't know, Vincent Price suit he brought over to show her and left it there. I don't know what the stuff was, but they said the article said to Mr. Burton's chagrin. So, he was fucking pissed.
Yeah, I read that too. A few more here, so I'll try and go through them quickly. Bill Murray as John Bunny Breckenridge, basically Ed's drag queen friend, helps him out with the movies. Good role. Very smooth face. I actually watched Plan 9 from Outer Space today just to get a feel for it, and pretty good ringer for that character. George the Animal Steel as Tor Johnson, professional wrestler. And George was a professional wrestler. I used to watch him when I watched wrestling way back in the day.
Eating turnbuckles with a green tongue.
Yeah, the green tongue. Yeah. Juliet Landau as Loretta King. That is Martin Landau's daughter. She replaces Dolores in Bride of the Monster. Yeah, he gives her the role thinking that she is going to fund the movie.
Yeah.
But she only has $300.
He thinks it's
allergic to all liquids.
Yeah.
What was
Dolores
that line?
throws a fucking cast iron pan and hits him in the head.
Yeah. Yeah. This role, because that's Martin Landau's daughter, and Joss Whedon saw this movie, and he honestly, now that we know about him, he probably wanted to fuck her. But she was on Buffy for years. She was Drusilla, Spike's girlfriend. Yeah.
All right. Ned Bellamy, and you're gonna like this one, John. Ned Bellamy as Tom Mason. He was the chiropractor who was chosen to be Lugosi's stand-in by hiding his face because He just had the eyebrows and the eyes that look good. This is our second Van Damme crossover because he was in Universal Soldier.
Right. He's one of the I think he's one of the military guys.
Yeah, he's an FBI guy.
Okay. All right. I remember him.
Yep.
There's him and another guy in this movie are Seinfeld alums because he is the guy that works in Elaine's building who wears the fatigues.
Yes.
Right. And she gets him a job in the mailroom. And then the other guy, you know how there's the two actors, they play the cops and one of them's from Doogie Howser. The other guy, not from Doogie Howser, the one that says to Bela Lugosi that you were Karloff's sidekick. He's the guy in Seinfeld that was called the Sidler that kept on sidling up to Elaine and she made him have Tic Tacs in his pocket.
I remember that.
Yeah. So a couple of Seinfeld references there.
All right. And after this last one, we can get on with it. Mike Starr as George Weiss, the Z movie producer that hires Ed to make not Glenn and Glenda, but the what was it?
I was a crossdresser?
It's something like that.
Yeah.
You'll remember him. We talked about him in the Al Pacino film Cruising.
That's right. Yeah,
he was one of the cops that picked up those two cross-dressers.
In the beginning.
No, they were gay. Yeah.
They were, yeah. Drag queens? Yes, I don't know.
Drag queens, yeah.
We're going to get fucking canceled for all
this. I'm sorry.
I can't remember.
I'm just trying to say they're, what they were doing.
There are actually
from
cameos, too, by Ed Wood actors from Plan 9 from Outer Space. Several of them.
Several?
Oh, really?
Yeah, Gregory Walcott, who was the hero in Plan 9, was one of the potential backers at one of those parties. You had, Conrad Brooks, who was one of the cops in Plan 9. He is he's a bartender in this thing.
Okay.
I thought there was one more.
Is Conrad? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Keith.
No, if I see it, or if it comes to me, I'll point it out. But those are the two I remember.
Is Conrad Brooks the guy at the end when they're telling you what happened to everybody who is said to be the president of the Conrad Brooks fan club? Did you read that line?
Oh, that's right.
You know what? I saw that.
Right,
I laughed so hard.
That actor is Brent Hinckley, who played Conrad Brooks in the movie.
Okay, right. Brent Hinckley is the Sidler. Yeah. All right. I did want to throw one more casting thing out there because it drove me nuts through the whole movie, and I had to look it up. And it was the guy's voice that I kept saying to myself, I know who this guy is. The older cameraman. Okay.
Yeah.
I recognize his voice and only his voice. I looked at him and I said, he might be familiar, but I recognize his voice. I looked him up today. I didn't write down his name or anything. He is Lou from Back to the Future, who is the guy Marty talks to at the diner in the 50s, who he says, give me a tab. I've seen that movie so many times that his voice, and this is 9 years later. He's long past. Wow. And I said, who is this guy?
Was that the colorblind guy with the red and green dresses?
Yes.
Yes.
Every time he talked, I went, I don't know why I know this guy, but I do. And when I went through his filmography, I went, that's who the fuck it is. He says to Marty, like, what are you in the Coast Guard? Because he's wearing the orange vest. Yeah. So I felt better about that. All right. So Ed Wood starts off with our intrepid hero, Ed Wood, and he is essentially directing this very small play in Los Angeles. And right off the bat, we kind of get an idea that Keith, right, that this is a guy who wants to do something with his life, who wants to be a creator, but he's not so interested in maybe quality or
detail. Well, he has that line in the film too. He said something like, "It's about the big picture. No one notices the details.
Yeah.
It's about the big picture."
And his home life is he works. It seems like he's some kind of florist or something along the lines where the studios probably buy some of his plants, or at least where he works, and he delivers them. So he gets to go onto sets, and we see him strike up a friendship with a guy who shows him stock footage. But meanwhile, like, the stock footage isn't just stock footage to him. It's a way to make a movie, and we see him utilize that skill. Keith, how would you describe his girlfriend? How would you describe his relationship with her, and what's she all about?
It's kind of in a sad way. It's kind of duplicitous. He's presenting, like he says, presenting one thing, but in the background, there's something else going on. I love early on that one scene where she has to get up early for work. And she's like, where are all my sweaters? And he rolls over and he's like, uh-oh, like that guilty, like, oh shit, on his face. And, and it comes back around when she finds out when he gives her the script to Glenn or Glenda. And she's like, is that why my sweaters are all stretched out?
Stretched out.
Yeah.
Lloyd, what's the fabric that Ed Wood seems to be most endeared?
He is Angora-phobic or Angora-lovic.
Yeah.
He loves Angora.
Loves the Angora. They're Himalayan rabbits.
Something I like about Ed in this movie is, and again, this is probably to an extent heavily fictionalized because in 1952 it wasn't okay to be gay, and we all know that. But the Ed that they have presented us in this film just tells everybody, like kind of right off the bat. He tells the Mike Starr character when he wants to, when he gets a chance to make a movie about a crossdresser. Well, what makes you said that you were, really, I guess, the best guy for the job. Why? Well, because I enjoy wearing women's undergarments, and no, I'm not gay. It's just something I like. And later on in the movie, when he goes out on his first date with Patricia Arquette's character, Kathy, he tells her right then and there. And I think there's something really great about like that whole idea that we've kind of made this world in this movie, at the least, that it's not accepted by everybody, but like he's okay with it. Most of his friends are totally okay with it as well. And also the Bunny Breckenridge character, there's a whole scene where he calls him up and tells him, you've got to get me a bunch of transvestites. And, he does that, and I'm assuming that probably happened in real life because he was making a movie about transvestites with Glenn or Glenda.
And what's great is when he is dressed like that, he's in an Angora sweater and, he's got heels on and a wig and he's directing the film and nobody says shit about it. It's like, it's just completely normal and nobody's bothered by it. And I love that part of it, except for two people, one being Dolores, his girlfriend, and then the Baptist minister after.
Back to what you were saying earlier, John, about how it has this heightened sense of this faux reality. Like it's grounded in reality, yet it's got this, it's elevated to this eccentricity that gives it just this weird pseudo alternate vibe.
Yeah, 100%. Keith, let me ask you a question. Do you think making this movie in black and white was necessary to this movie? Yeah, right. I do too. Yeah. I think it had to be. Why do you think the black and white is so important to the story?
Well, first of all, just as an aside, I love black and white filmmaking, period. I mean, you can do so much with it. I just love the contrast, the shadows, everything you can do with lighting. I'm a big fan of artistic lighting. You can't get that in color, what you can get in black and white. But when you're making something that's spoofing 1950s B horror movies, it has to be in black and white. Yeah. I think half the illusion would have been shattered in color. It just wouldn't have worked.
I agree. I think the black and white gives it a sense, even though we talked about how it's like kind of this heightened reality, that it is in the 50s.
Right.
And that these cheapoid monster movies and kind of weird dimes, like there's one point where he wants to go to the premiere of Glenn or Glenda and the Mike Starr character is like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is opening in Alabama and 2 theaters in Michigan. This isn't opening everywhere. Yeah, we just sold the posters. Yeah. But like the black and white makes it feel like a film from the 50s in a lot of ways.
Well, and that's the thing. Most of the monster movies we grew up watching were in black and white. That's we immediately identify that era and that genre with black and white.
Yeah. I got a question for you, Lloyd. It's a trivia question about the film. This movie, this Tim Burton movie, only has one thing in common with only 2 other Tim Burton films. And it's what's the word? It's somebody is not here for this film. Do you know who's missing? And do you know the other 2 films?
Oh, wow. Somebody is not here
in the production of the film. It's not not an actor.
Oh, okay.
Think of all the aspects of what make a movie work. And something is different in this film.
I think I know.
Is it the score?
It is the score. No Danny Elfman.
Elfman, that's it. Yeah.
Howard Shore, who ended up doing the Lord of the Rings films, did this film.
Yep.
Danny Elfman and Tim Burton had a lot of contention between the production of Batman Returns and then A Nightmare Before Christmas, which obviously A Nightmare Before Christmas or The Nightmare, I'm not sure what it is, but, there was a lot there, a bunch of songs. Danny Elfman sang them, wrote a bunch of things, and Batman Returns had a long production with the music as well. And the music in that is way more involved and actually better than the 89 Batman. And they just finally got to a point where they stopped talking to each other. So he hired Howard Shore for Ed Wood. I don't think it suffers from it, but man, if there's any one of his movies that I think could have I would have loved to have heard that Danny Elfman vibe, and it probably would have worked in this well. The other two movies, if you're wondering, are Sweeney Todd, because that had a Stephen Sondheim soundtrack already, so he didn't, there's no reason to bring Danny Elfman in. And then because Elfman was busy with another film, Dr. Peregrine's Kids, it's one of his recent ones he didn't do. So there's only 3 in Tim Burton's filmography that he did not do. But yeah, I think, Keith, do you feel like I think the music's good in this, but
yeah, and he uses hints of the Dracula score from the 1933 Dracula. I like the calypso stuff, with the bongos.
Yeah.
I think it services the film okay. I don't know. Maybe Danny Elfman's music would have been too big. It's a small film. It has a gritty, independent, cheap feel. And I wonder if this big, bombastic would have been too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the subtlety.
I do like the score. I have no problem with the score. I picture that the opening credits with the graveyard and everything, and the lightning bolt through the Touchstone logo in black and white. I could definitely hear the Danny Elfman there. It was a little subdued in certain areas, but it's still good. So he makes Glenn or Glenda and puts it out there and brings it to some studio executives who just think it's the worst thing ever. There's a scene where the guy says this is the worst film I've ever seen. And for a few moments, he's a little down on his luck. But who does he meet, Lloyd, after essentially not selling his movie? What is like the big thing that happens in Ed Wood's life? Who does he meet in a coffin shop?
Just laying in a coffin with his hands, crossed over his heart is Bela Lugosi. And he, what is he looking for? A taxi, or he's looking for some way to get home? And Ed Wood is like, hey, I got a car. So they strike up a nice spark to a good relationship. And this is where you even see Bela Lugosi's humor. He definitely has a humorous side. And even if some of it may be lost on Ed Wood, I feel like a little bit. But yeah, he brings him home, and it's just the beginning of this, what I think is a really nice, genuine, heartfelt relationship between these two guys.
Yeah. Keith, we introduced the fact that Bela Lugosi in his final years of life was a drug addict. His family, the only issue his family had with this performance was that they said he didn't swear. Yeah. They said, in this, he goes off, don't mention Boris Karloff.
He didn't curse it. He didn't have dogs.
Yeah. Right. Don't mention Karloff. Because Karloff's a limey fucking cocksucker.
Oh, I've got that quote written down somewhere. We'll get to it.
It's hilarious. It's so good. But so we learn all these things about Bela Lugosi, and we see how he's looked at in Hollywood, and kind of like how Hollywood is purported to be to everyone. Like how once you're not hot anymore, you're nothing anymore.
Yeah, I love the line where he says, "This town that chews you up then spits you out. No one gives 2 fucks for Bela."
Do you feel the relationship, Keith?
Much like Lloyd pointed out, I think that scene where they're driving that first time and getting to know each other is one of the most. It's a heartfelt. It's a great scene. It's so genuine. It feels so real.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like if you've ever bumped into an athlete or worked with someone that of say celebrity stature, and you can have a conversation like that. I've had a couple like that, and it's kind of surreal. You see, like this is an actual human being, not somebody who's been on TV and all this. When you talk to them and you see, well, this is a human being with feelings and all the same foibles I have, right?
Right, and especially when they're on the second half of their career and life.
Yes.
So Ed Wood ends up using, and not using in a bad way, but he uses the fact that he has this friendship with Bela Lugosi to get his next picture moving along, Bride of the Atom. So, you know, now he has a star, quote unquote, even though everybody in town says, oh, he's,
Everybody says.
they think he's dead.
The running
Isn't he
joke.
dead?
Isn't he dead?
Isn't
he dead?
Even his girlfriend.
Yeah.
You met Basil Rathbone.
So they start moving along on making this next movie, and we just go in and out of some of the problems they have with getting things together. They steal a giant octopus.
The octopus scene.
But they forget the octopus motor, which is a funny joke throughout the whole thing. But I want to get into a little bit of the more serious stuff, because I'm not even kidding, man. I got choked up. The scene. So there's several scenes where Ed gets calls in the middle of the night from Bella. And it's essentially like, help me, Eddie, because he, not only is he an old man, but he's a drug addict.
Drug addict.
At his age, that's got to be tough. The scene where, and I think this might have been the scene that a lot of people might have voted for Martin Landau with the Oscar, is when when Eddie takes him to the rehab place, or at the time, I'm sure it was probably like considered maybe like a sanitarium.
Yeah.
You know? And he says, my name is Bela Lugosi, and I have been a drug addict for 20 years. And, man, that moved me. And then the scene where he's in bed, like with the
screaming,
withdrawals.
Toxic. Oh, yeah.
It's this isn't a movie that's, trying to push heaviness into your face. But they did a good job. Tim Burton does a good job, and the writers do a good job of interjecting some of this stuff in there as well. And man, you really feel for him. Like, I felt so terrible for this guy. And when he comes out, he seems like he's much better.
And you know what's funny? What I love, like, speaking to his eternal optimism, he gets a call from the doctor and he says, look, he has no health insurance. It ran out 20 years ago. We just can't help him anymore. You're going to have to take him out. And you're like, oh my God, how are we going to explain this to Bella? And he goes in there, he goes, hey, doctor says you're all better. It's time to go.
Yeah.
It's just this optimism that's just infectious with him.
Optimism combined with a little bit of used car salesman.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we see that really start again, even though we love Ed Wood, we see the used car salesman bit when he tries to get Vampira at the restaurant. Like, he's desperately trying to get her to star in this movie to get her fan base, maybe. Definitely has his points. One of the best ones is, as we mentioned earlier, is the Juliet Landau scene where he overhears her talking about all of her money, and he sidles up to her with that grin.
Yeah.
And essentially as a result of a non-conversation, he just thinks she has $60,000 when in fact all she had was $300, and she gave it all to him. And also, as Keith said earlier, very confusingly, an allergy to all liquids, which
it's such a line out of left field.
Yeah.
It's just so bizarre. No liquids.
Yeah. That's very strange.
Yeah. And because they never come back to it. It's just this throwaway line that makes you, what?
I hadn't seen the movie in a while, so when she said that, I did not remember that line, and I was hoping that Ed was going to ask so that I would know, like, what's the deal with the liquids? But like it's a throwaway line, and now I'm left here going, and because this woman was a real person.
Now you have to go Google it.
Now I got to find out. Like,
is this a thing?
I think it's a Tim Burton non sequitur just to mess with the audience.
Yeah.
Just to throw it in there so you just go, what? Because everybody else has these bizarre quirks. They had to give her one too.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's really bizarre in this movie. Everybody.
So here's another line that I felt like was written very well and performed very well by Bill Murray, because I felt like it was so fucking bizarre. He makes a comment earlier in the movie that he's going to go to Mexico to start getting hormone treatments because he's going to become a lady. And again, this 1994 movie, 1950s people, it's just out there. But then he comes back from Mexico and they're at a backer party and he's all sad. And there's a few things in what he says that are very odd. The first one is one of the characters says to him, how did it go? And he goes, Mexico was terrible. He said, I can't remember the first thing he says. Like, the doctor was a quack. The second thing is how his boyfriend died. Yeah, but he just says it like it's one of three things. So he's the doctor was a quack. My boyfriend died. He says one more thing, and then he's surrounded by a mariachi band, and he says, and if it wasn't for these gentlemen, I would have never gotten back. And then it's just glossed over, but it's like, did he bring a mariachi band back from Mexico? How the fuck did that happen?
To perform at Ed Wood's opening night party.
Yeah. So you're very right.
I like his line even prior to the operation where he's explaining it. He said, "Yeah, they're gonna fill me with hormones, and when those ladies kick in, they're gonna take out my organs."
Goodbye, penis.
Yeah. We've talked about it on the show before, but there's always everybody jokes like Phoebe Cates and Fast Times, like back in the 80s. That videotape probably got brought back to many stores stuck on that scene, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that the same thing happened in the scene where George the Animal Steel is getting a massage and eating eating a roaster chicken? I don't think I've ever seen a more sexually
charged. I couldn't wait to get past that part fast enough.
I'm watching the movie and my wife's reading,
not
paying attention to the movie, and when he's on the table, I just said to my wife, "Look how fucking hairy this guy is," and then as he's getting this massage, he's eating a Cornish fucking hen.
Yeah.
It's the most sexually charged scene of 1994.
It's on a tray or like right in front of him.
Movies like the Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
You bring my water? No, I'm not the water boy. You're absolutely right, Keith, when you said that. There's some really bizarre little, like, not even non sequiturs, but like, I think they just fit into this world pretty perfectly.
Right.
It's to dial their eccentricity to 11 and kind of, they become very cartoony, yet likable and relatable.
Yeah.
It's kind of this weird fine line that Tim Burton walks in this movie, but it works. You love these people, even though they're all like really damaged.
We move as we get through the movie, we move into the final bit where Dolores has left. Ed has met Kathy. He tells Kathy on their first date that he's a crossdresser. She's all for it. She says, do you not like sex with girls? He's like, I love sex with girls. That's enough for her.
Like, okay.
It's like, that works for me. I'm fine with that. But now he has moved into his next project, which is a science fiction film, which is going to end up becoming Plan 9 from Outer Space. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie, they need new backers. Now, they've gone through several backers. Obviously, Juliet Landau only gave $300.
They hacking guy.
Yeah, Rance Howard, Ron Howard's father.
Oh, that was great.
Who insists.
Explosion.
You need a big explosion at the end of this film. It's like, well, the end of the film is fighting an octopus.
Not getting eaten by his octopus. Not anymore.
Not anymore. You want my
puts his what would we call it? Special needs son in the lead role.
Yeah, he's did he say slow?
He says
he's a little slow, but he's a hell of a lead man.
Slow. Yeah.
He says he's a little bit slow, but he's a good boy.
Yeah.
And then he says, and I think he's going to make a great leading man. There's another great little joke of that character in this movie is there's like 3 scenes in a row where he's in the background reciting the same line over and over again. Like,
stay away.
Yeah. Stay away. So we move into Plan 9 from Outer Space. The new backers are the Baptists. One of the best scenes in the film is the baptism scene where, do you reject Satan? And Bill Murray, sure. Dunks him in. Now, I think it's important to mention that, as in real life, Bela Lugosi has passed at this point. And because
before that, he had such a good scene when he calls Eddie, one of his nighttime, Eddie, come help me. And he gets there and Eddie opens the door and, Bella's got a gun to his face. And they have this moment, and Eddie completely talks him out of it. And then what I think is probably the best shot in the whole movie is when he's in the chair. And it's like Keith was saying before with the black and white and the light and the shadow. There's a view looking up at Bella from the chair, and half his face is light, half his shadow, and he's got his, Bella eyes, and it just a great shot, amazing. It just stands right out.
Bella, well, and Martin Landau, obviously, but one of the things that's great about Bella in this movie is that at any point, no matter how down and out he is, no matter how, drug sick he is or anything, whenever he's needed to do his job, he still does it better than anybody.
Yes.
I've got to take a nap, and he does a little bit of morphine, but then he's ready. And they forgot the octopus motor, yet he just does everything that needs to be done to make it look like a man fighting an octopus.
Give me a shot of whiskey.
Yeah.
Gets in the water. Does a fantastic job fighting that octopus.
And I love the symbiotic relationship that Tim Burton created between the two characters. So they kind of need each other. It turns out, it starts out that, Eddie's going to kind of use Bella, but it turns out, but Bella needs Eddie just as much as Eddie needs Bella. And they become not only great friends, but there's a symbiosis taking place there. Bella's always looking to Eddie like, when's the next picture? When are we going to make another movie? Like, he thinks Eddie's super talented. It's like, Eddie knocks off 30, 40 scenes a day. With Universal, we do one.
Yeah, that's
because he doesn't mind, guys bumping into walls and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because it's real. They'd have to contend with that problem every day in real life.
It's something he deals with every day. Going through doors.
You got to understand, Lobo would have that problem every day of his life. Yeah, I think Ed Wood might have been known as cut, wrap, print. Like he doesn't care. He just wants to put this thing together. So we get through Plan 9. There's a lot of different things that come into play. Bella is dead, but Bella had already filmed some of his role for it. So
when he left rehab, he wanted to go out and shoot something with Eddie right away. So they went and shot that. Because then Bella's like, Eddie's like, oh, let's do this. And he's like, what if I just took time to stop and smell the roses?
Mm-hmm.
And wonder when Bella says something like that, if he knew he was dying.
Yeah, I think so.
And he just wanted to kind of just pause and reflect. Now, I think in real life, that was because his wife had died. And he wanted to do something, kind of remembering her with the rose and all that kind of stuff. They don't mention that in the Ed Wood movie, but. Yeah,
in the movie, they make it seem like, I think he says his most current wife just left him.
Yes.
Yeah. So some of the things that go on in the Plan 9, it's backed by the Baptists, but the Baptists are making a big deal of everything. They can't call it grave robbers from space because, we're Baptists and we don't want
sacrilegious,
sacrilegious Satan shit. So they're the ones that suggest Plan 9 from outer space. But Eddie, again, being optimistic about everything, he likes it. He thinks it sounds good. He hires his wife's chiropractor, his girlfriend at the time's chiropractor, to play Bella in scenes from the film because from nose up, kind of looks like him from the side, kind of, sort of, not so much.
I love when they're in the diner. He's like, "Look at his head; it's uncanny."
I like when they get all the way through hiring the guy. And they're about to put him on, and the guy's like, he's bald. Like, and he's like, I never noticed that.
Yeah. What's so funny? I just watched it today, like I said, and there are scenes throughout the whole movie. Half of the scenes, Bella is standing in the graveyard and, perfectly exposed with his cape down. And then the other half is just the other guy walking around with his head tucked behind his arm. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost feels kind of sports movie-ish at the end because, they all come together and they make this thing. He's been trying to get Vampira in some of his movies and she wanted nothing to do with him. She loses her job. She comes on, Tor Johnson because, they couldn't, Vampira didn't want to talk and Bella's dead. They give him most of the lines, and to be polite, he's unintelligible. He's heavily Swedish and heavily, he talks like this, he's not leading man material. But it all comes together in the end in this really great scene at this crowded theater in a rainstorm where, we get the ending that we kind of want for Ed Wood in this film. It's not the ending that he got in real life, and the final scene where they say what happens to him alludes to that. But he goes and he watches the premiere of his movie with all of his friends and with a bunch of people watching it on a big screen, which none of us have done, to see your final product up there and just, he's done something not a lot of people have done.
Yeah.
His reputation.
It's your own vision.
Right. It's your own vision. His reputation in the real world is, and he got voted as the worst director of all time. None of that matters because, he's watching this with his friends. And he even says, that this is such a perfect ending to my, to this story and kind of a beginning. The end does tell us what happens to everybody. And, he didn't live much longer. They allude to his alcoholism. Well, he lived another 20 years or so, allude to his alcoholism and, but, he has this legacy amongst movie fans in the world of being this bad or, this cult director. More people have seen Plan 9 from Outer Space than have seen a lot of big blockbusters that came and went, and it will, in 25 years, people are going to remember Plan 9 from Outer Space more than they're going to remember Transformers.
People
4.
have like movie night parties where they watch Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Right. So, whether or not it's good in the end, it's remembered and it's left there. So, So that's where we kind of leave our story of Ed Wood. Manster, let's talk about the box office.
All you care about is money.
So this had a budget of $18 million. And, well, it didn't do quite so good. The opening weekend made $71,000.
Ouch.
Yep. And the total box office made $5.8 million. What I saw was out for 12 weeks. But it was re-released in 2021 in New Zealand and made another $268.
I thought you were going to say million or thousand at least.
Yeah. So the weekend this came out, Ed Wood came in, in his first week of release, came in number 16, like I said, at 71,000. At number 4, Forrest Gump at 4.3 million in its 13th week. Jason's Lyric also in its first week at number 3. And here is crossover number 2 with Van Damuary. Number 2 movie that weekend was Time Cop.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And number 1 was The River Wild.
Yeah, I saw that in the movie theaters one time.
Yep, Kevin Bacon. And for the year, I think we've talked about this year before. Ed Wood came in at 136, 5.8. True Lies number 3, The Lion King number 2, and Forrest Gump number 1.
All right. Well, that's kind of depressing, but I kind of see, it's a biopic about a guy that not everybody knows a lot about. It's a Tim Burton movie after he made 2 Batman movies, and maybe people were expecting something bigger, and instead he went with something more story heavy. So I see. And again, Johnny Depp, we've talked about this all through Depptember. He's never been about, other than Pirates of the Caribbean, he's had his ups and downs, but he's had a lot more downs. He's not necessarily, this isn't a box office king.
No, he's not Tom Cruise.
He's no Tom Cruise. He's made a lot of smaller movies, and he's made a lot of movies that were a little bit bigger that just didn't do as well as you would think. Could have or should have. So, all right. So that's it for the box office. Before we rate this thing, let's talk a little bit about Keith's endeavors.
Geek Time TV. It's kind of a hobby. Like you guys are much more. I gotta say, I don't know how you keep putting these things out consistently. I can't even do a 10-minute YouTube video a week. It's just like, I don't know.
We're the Ed Wood of podcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Perseverance.
Yeah. It's just a channel where if I see something or my buddy Edson sees something pertaining to pop culture or even sports, we just do a quick little video on it, give our opinion, take it or leave it. And that's pretty much it. There's 1,000,001 channels like it out there, but we have fun with it.
That's what you need. Just have fun.
Where Lloyd and I are 2 white guys talking about movies podcast number 6,236.
You guys, I applaud you to be able to do this consistently.
It's rough. It's not easy.
It's not easy, but thank you.
Scheduling is not easy, but we appreciate it. We put it out because there's some people out there that like to listen to it.
So I'm one of them.
I can never figure that out.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
You're entertaining. You really are, and you're fun to listen to. And I like how it's never the same thing. You guys are always picking out this. Sometimes it's like, wow, this is a strange film to be reviewing, but I'm going to give it a listen.
Yeah, that's true.
What the fuck is the Greasy Strangler?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That was one of my favorite episodes, by the way.
Did you watch the movie though?
No, I was going to watch it right after I listened to your show. And again, it's one of those things I got busy, forgot all about it. But now that you brought it up,
I was going to tell you to forget about it.
No, I got to see it because I love that episode. It was so funny. Greasy Strangler.
You know what this coffee needs? More grease.
More grease. You think I'm the Greasy Strangler, don't you? You think I'm the Greasy Strangler. Bullshit artist.
Sometimes I
Oof.
wonder how you find these films, you know?
That one was a Scary Larry.
Yeah, I remember that was a Scary Larry. That's his fault. Yeah.
Most of the really weird ones, Greasy Strangler, the recent The Lore, the Mermaid musical movie.
Such a good movie.
Rubber, that terrible horror movie about a tire that kills people. Those are all Larry brings those to us.
What's that, Teeth?
Teeth, Teeth is a good movie though. I recommend Teeth.
I saw that in a hotel one night and I was like, what? I stumbled on it. I'm like, right in the middle of one of the attack scenes. And I'm like, what in the hell is this? I had to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
You have to.
Teeth and Excision were two that I actually liked quite
Excision
a bit.
Was good.
Those are both really weirdo Larry picks. All right, let's get back to Ed Wood. Let's rate this thing.
Hit me with it. Just give it to me straight.
Manster, before we give our ratings, which of course are on the scale of 0 to 5, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best, quarter and a half scale optional, we got a couple of the Pint Insiders. Remember, you can go to Patreon/The Pint, and we got a couple of our insiders that gave their ratings and a couple things to say about this movie. Who do we got and what did they say?
Well, we first have Julio Mendoza from the Contrarians podcast. He says 5 out of 5. There's no other correct score. It's not just a sweet portrayal of the relentlessness necessary to be a filmmaker, but also a moving and funny depiction of an unlikely friendship. Love it. And also, it's better than Halloween 5.
What I love about that is that's a dig at Stu, who's not even on this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. 5 out of 5 from Julio.
Stu didn't rate it. I'm sure Stu didn't watch this. Next, we have our friend Patrick Flanagan. He says, and he's given 2 scores. Patrick, you got to pick one. He says a 4 or 4.25 out of 5. This is absolutely my favorite performance by Johnny Depp. Fantastic supporting roles by everyone. Sarah Jessica Parker and Jeffrey Jones at their best. Loves the black and white. My only quibble is that it airs a bit too much on the romantic schmaltzy side.
What?
It doesn't pull punches with Bella's fate, but the hero overcomes all. Tone of the last scene rings false, considering how the industry and Wood's lack of talent chewed him up and spit him out. I get that it's a story about Hollywood myths, but maybe they should have given Ed a couple of flaws. He's almost saintly.
I can sort of agree with that, but I think that they're trying to keep the tone, tone all the way through. Because like we did say, it is almost a little weird that like they make this tone for the whole movie, and then at the end they say, well, he was an alcoholic and he died young. You know, it's almost like, you know, all the stuff you've just seen is great, but it wasn't a good ending. But it's kind of, what's that?
I'm sorry, John. I didn't mean to.
No, what'd you say?
I was going to say, plus, it's no fun to have a protagonist you don't like.
Yeah. I agree.
Yep. His last comment, even though all that seemed like a negative, he goes, I love this movie.
All right, let's do it. We're not going to start with the Manster, so we can give him an opportunity to not overrate possibly. I'm going to go first on this one. This is, I think, my favorite Tim Burton movie. It's right. Well, okay. Pee-wee's Big Adventure is probably my favorite Tim Burton movie, but they're different movies. This is right there with it. It's a different movie. It's a different tone movie. It's a great biopic. It's different than most biopics because it does have kind of a lighter heart to it, and it does exist in a kind of a different universe. You know, we don't see all the hardships, and that's kind of nice, you know, even though when they do drop stuff in, like Bella's sickness and his death, it counters it. Black and white is incredible. The acting across the board is great in this. Martin Landau deserved that Academy Award. Rick Baker deserved that Academy Award because he doesn't look like he's wearing prosthetics or makeup to me. He looks like a real person, and he looks like Bela Lugosi. Sarah Jessica Parker is really good in this. You kind of dislike her for the way that she kind of treats Ed. It's Johnny Depp's best performance. You know, and again, I think the only one that might possibly be running with that is Captain Jack. And like I said earlier on, that's more of a one-trick pony that just happens to be entertaining as hell. But there's a real enthusiasm about his Ed Wood. Like, you want him to succeed in this whole thing.
Yeah.
He just does it very well. I saw this in the theaters many years ago, and I've always loved this movie. So this is going to get the rarefied air, as they may say over on the 3FN podcast show I love. This is a 5 out of 5 for me. I love this movie. I had not seen it in years, and it was such a good watch last night. I just enjoyed it from beginning to end. It was almost like a first watch because I hadn't seen it in so long, and the feeling was still there. Sometimes you love a movie or you dislike a movie and you watch it years later and your feelings have changed about it. And my feelings have not changed about this. This is a 5 out of 5. All right, let's go to Keith Larson. What does Keith give this movie? Now, he said right at the beginning he loves it, but how much does he love it?
Well, this is a tough to follow you because you really summed up a lot of my feelings on this film. In 1994, I was leaving school for, learning production. And that year had Pulp Fiction, it had Clerks, and it had this. And all three of them spoke to me for the same reason in different ways. You see Pulp Fiction, you're like, wow, this is such a different way to tell a story. It just blew the lid off the studio cookie cutter crap, right?
Right.
And then you had Clerks that showed that, geez, I mean, this guy had no money and he made a movie about a couple guys hanging out in a convenience store and, with a little snappy dialogue and a little willpower, look what you can do. And then Ed Wood comes along and kind of shows you that same idea in a different way. So it was very inspiring to me. Like, it motivated me when I was young and hungry. And I was like, wow, these are speaking to me. I can do this. It was funny. I remember reading a thing with Tarantino that year that when he saw the movie and that scene you mentioned at the end, John, where he says, this is the one I'll be remembered for, as he's sitting at his premiere and he's lip syncing the dialogue and doing the expressions and Tarantino said everybody in the theater was dying laughing. And he was mad. He was like, no, you're missing the point. This is not something to laugh at. This guy worked really hard and he kept coming back. He kept getting knocked down and he kept coming back. And this is a story about perseverance and we should applaud him for this, not laugh at him. I've always remembered that quote from Tarantino because I felt the same way. In fact, I'm a lot like you. I get very emotional a lot when I watch films. Not so much. A lot of times, for the characters, or I care about the protagonist or whatnot. But a lot of times for me, I know what went into making it.
Right.
And the piece of art, I just get. And when Ed Wood is sitting there at the end and he says that, I get the goosebumps and my eyes well up a little bit because I would love to be sitting there, even if I made that same piece of trash. The fact that, like you said, he got to experience that moment in life was you can't put a price tag on something like that. And you're so happy for him that, he made a piece of shit, but he still accomplished his goal.
Right.
And had his one moment in the sun, his 15 minutes, if you will. So that's all that said. I watch this movie at least once a year. I love it. I'm sad that it tanked. I had no idea it did that bad in the theaters. And I wonder if the black and white had something to do with that too. People see the commercial and go, black and white.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Stupid, cheap looking monster movie. 5 stars. It's Tim Burton's magnum opus. Magnum opus? Magnum opus?
Yeah,
it's
Magnum,
his best film. It's his best film by far. I mean, it's got everything. It's perfect. It's near flawless.
Is it Magnum Opus?
Yeah, it's Magnum Opus.
All right. I don't know, because once you said it,
Ultra Magnus.
Yeah, that's Magnum Opus for sure.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Manster, what do you got?
Well, that's hard to follow up. It's funny because you guys said, although I wasn't as inspired, because I just saw this for the first time. So I didn't get that inspiration that Keith has. I'm kind of jealous about that. But you said a few things, John, that almost mirrored exactly what I have written here. So I'll get to it. So Tim Burton, he made a great film out of about somebody, a slice of life of somebody that most people don't know. I mean, unless you knew this movie and whatnot. I mean, I didn't know who Ed Wood was, growing up. Meant nothing to me. But he made a great movie about them. And he did it through Wood's eyes with that optimistic quality and everything's shown with respect. and also gives you kind of like that crazy spirit of 1950s exploitation type movies, which is fun to see. Johnny Depp turns in another offbeat, honest performance, and his character really makes us root for him. You know, even if it's not the type of character you normally go for or whatever, but he really makes us like throw in with this guy and really want him to succeed. However, Depp is outshined by Martin Landau, I think. He is both creepy and sympathetic and washed up, and he also makes you forget that you're not watching Bela Lugosi, you're watching Martin Landau, and it's amazing. He just has this magnetism and glamour. Like when we reviewed Dracula, Dr. Acula, when we reviewed Dracula, I think, we mentioned that a lot, that he glamours his audience, and he glamours everybody in this movie. It's amazing. And this might be the first, I don't know, but 5 out of 5.
Wow.
It is my favorite Johnny Depp and Tim Burton movie, and I've only just seen it. So,
well, it works out that we did this last, which was just coincidental because we wanted to get Keith on. So got the other ones done. And I don't, from the beginning of the time that we started doing the show, I don't write down I should have started a long time ago what we each give everything. But I'm going to say, I think this is the first time we've ever gotten, at the very least, more than 2 people with a 5. And there's only been a couple 5s. Like, some of them might make people laugh. Like I gave Predator a 5. I love Predator. I gave Aliens a 5.
Yeah.
But we're not throwing 5s.
You didn't give The Thing a 5.
I'm still embarrassed by that.
So I'm hoping this makes up for, because there's no way I could have ever said that Jurassic Park was better than this.
Yeah, you gave Jurassic Park.
So
a 5.
I had no choice but to give it a 5. I mean, I can't make myself look that stupid.
I definitely feel like this is the first ever 3-person 5. So this movie.
I was really happy that you picked this when you announced the Depptember thing. You said, "Oh, pick what movies," and before I even clicked it, I'm like, Ed Wood better be on there.
I put it on there because I wanted to watch it again. I honestly didn't think it would win. Part of the vote.
Do you remember the order of
it
votes?
One going away, I think, right? It was
Ed Wood, I think, was the one that got maybe the most votes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought Pirates of the Caribbean would, and that was like second. So yeah, it was kind of surprising. It was kind of surprising, but great movie, 3 5s. Manster, before we get out of here, tell everybody where they could find us.
Well, they could find us anywhere they like to get their podcasts. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube at The Pint, a pop culture podcast, and on Instagram and Threads at The Pint Podcast. And you can become a Pint Insider and get to vote on stuff like this at patreon.com/The Pint.
Keith, again, Geek Time TV YouTube channel.
Yep.
You're on Twitter or X or whatever, correct?
Correct.
And what is that?
That's at Geek Time Net, because it was a network for a very short time.
This is the end of Depptember. Next month is All Horror October. The first week, me and Stu are doing a triple T on Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. And then we got some good stuff coming up after that. But I wanted to throw out there, if you go to bandcamp.com, check out Entiero. If you don't know who Entiero is, that is the band that plays our outro song. So right after John Rambo freaks the fuck out, you hear that metal riff. That's a song called Turn Off the Light from their first album called Entiero. Their second album came out a couple years ago called El Camazotes. And their brand new album, The Gates of Hell, comes out on October 19th. You can go to Bandcamp and you could buy all of these digitally and support them. They're awesome. Our buddy Chris Baudet, who is the bass player and the singer, I don't just say this, but if you like metal, this is a fucking good band. If you've ever, I'm sure you've heard that song before that ends our show. It's fucking great, and they're great. And of course, I can't say that without saying, while you're on Bandcamp, go find Buried Under Sky. That is our buddy Sal from Robber Barons Inc., and they are the ones who perform Darkest Corners, which is our intro song. So if you want to look into some new music, go to Bandcamp, check out Entiero, Entierro, for some awesome metal. And if you like awesome metal, check out Entiero. Look at their album covers, man. They're doing it like 80s style. It's like Iron Maiden album covers. Like, there's one that's like a fucking, like a mutated tree, and the new one is this giant fucking gate with a warrior in front of it. It's badass.
It's so good.
Those guys give us this music to share and use. So I want to throw that out there. Check them out. Buried Under Sky and NTRO. And until next time, Lloyd, say the words.
Karloff, sidekick, fuck you. Karloff does not deserve to smell my shit. That limey cocksucker can rot in hell for all I care. See ya.
See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!